Hey, y'all, and welcome back to another Southern Fried, a soul-grown podcast, the show that explores the South through its people. Hey, today we got to sit down with Amanda Storey, the executive director of Jones Valley Teaching Farm in Birmingham, Alabama. Jones Valley is a teaching farm in the heart of Birmingham that uses food as a foundation so young people can lead, create, and grow a healthy future for themselves and their communities. It is such an awesome mission that Jones Valley has, and getting to sit down with Amanda and dive into her life and her story and what led her to become the executive director at Jones Valley was such an interesting conversation. If you love community, if you love food, if you love people, this is a great episode to listen to. Thanks for tuning in, and without further ado, let's get to the episode with Amanda Storey. All right, y'all. We are welcoming Amanda Storey to the Southern Fried Podcast. Amanda, how are you today?
I am good. Yes, I'm good.
Look, I think you're joining us on your porch. This is Southern Fried. I just think that's such a Southern way to be talking to somebody is on your porch, and so I kind of appreciate that for this chat.
Well, glad it's easier for me, so I'm glad to be out here. Actually, it's nice to be surrounded by nature, so it's a good place for me at least.
Oh, great. Well, Amanda, this is Southern Fried, and we talk to people from all across the South. And so I like to kind of towards the start of a show really kind of get to know who are we talking to? Why did we ask them to be on Southern Fried? And I think a good way to do that is to always ask where they're from. So why don't you tell us a little bit about where you're from?
Sure. I'm from Columbus, Georgia, which is not too far here from Birmingham.
Yeah.
But I know I claim Georgia, but
Okay.
as I've been thinking about it, I think have lived longer in Birmingham than I did in my hometown,
Okay.
which is kind of crazy for me at this point
Yeah.
in my journey and my life. So I grew up in Columbus, Georgia, in Chattahoochee River. We're right next to Phoenix City, Alabama. So
Yeah.
we're real careful about that line. I
Okay.
grew up very careful about that line. So, and then found my way to Birmingham, which we can talk about. But yeah, Columbus, Georgia runs through my veins.
Well, I think, okay, so on one of my very first episodes, I talked to somebody about, like where we're from and where we're living can be
Mhm.
like two different places, And
Yeah.
so, but I gotta say, I feel like if you've spent a lot of time here in the great state of Alabama, maybe we should really start to pull you in and make you feel like you're one of us.
I'm definitely there. I mean, my kids are from here.
Yeah.
Found my husband here, and my mother moved from Columbus to be here, so she's now here. So, I mean, we're rooted in Birmingham for sure, and I'm drawn to Birmingham for sure. But as a Georgia girl, just have to be real careful with how I talk about it.
Are you a Bulldog as well, if you're a Georgia girl?
I graduated from the University of Georgia. I went to a bunch of colleges, but I finally graduated Georgia. But here's anybody that's watching this is going to know this about me
Okay.
is like I have to ask what color the ball is in order to understand what sport we're talking about. I don't think I went to one game when I was at school. So that'll tell you a lot about where I fit in the South. And it just takes all of us, I continue to say. We all got to find our way.
Sure.
Yeah. So I'm an outlier for sure, but I will
Yeah.
claim Georgia. And I was raised in an Alabama household. So I
Mm.
have to say that was what I was raised in. So, but never watched games, to be honest.
Okay. Hey, and you know what? It's probably better not getting that tied into sporting events. I think I envy you a little bit there.
Yeah, not tied to it at all, but appreciate and move carefully through this world, knowing how important it is to many people that I come into contact with. So I'm at least respectful of it.
Sure. Did you say Columbus on the Chattahoochee, like the song?
Yeah, the song, yes, but
Yeah.
also the river that we.
Well, yeah, sure, but
But yes, the Chattahoochee, that's what I grew up on and near, and I think it makes a lot of who I am, to be honest. But
yeah.
the river runs through Georgia, in Columbus, obviously, and then I grew up on the lake, so water's been pretty important to me in my life. But yeah,
Well, growing or working now, at Jones Valley Teaching Farm, which obviously we'll get into as our conversation goes. But I do find it interesting because when you talked about growing up, you mentioned the river, and so I think, and you're outside, you're surrounded by nature. So has kind of outside, being on the water or being in nature, always kind of been a part of your life?
I think a little bit. I think, well, water has, and it's played a really important role in my life and where I grew up. But I think, I was also surrounded by grandparents, my dad, who grew a lot of vegetables my whole life. I think food has played an entire, I would say food and food ways has played
Yeah,
really a more of a role in my life than anything else, a connection to place through food. And whether that's through your family ties or whether that's through the community that you've built or what's grown and all of those things. And, but yeah, I think that that has played a pretty important role in my life more than the other, probably more than the other pieces. But
sure.
really interesting that I've ended up in this career. Uh, I am not a farmer. I do not grow things.
Okay.
I've surrounded myself with people who do,
Yeah,
because I do think that there is this magic that people have who can grow things and who can nurture things and have been around that my life, but also many important people in my life that have done that. So I'm continually in awe by people who can do miraculous things with, seeds
yeah.
and the nurturing that has to take place for that to happen. So I'm proud to be amongst the folks who do that.
Well, the people who know how to grow things, they always make it look so easy,
Yeah.
and it's like I feel like I'm doing the same thing. I'm putting seeds in soil and I'm watering it. So why won't my tomato plant grow?
Yeah.
Like why are y'all so much better at it? So respect to surround yourself with people who know what they're doing because
1,000%. Yes.
I that's it's a struggle. Well, I want to talk a little bit about kind of your background and how you ended up getting to where you are now.
Yeah.
You know, a little earlier, I'm going to admit something in this digital age. I did some LinkedIn stalking, and who
Yeah.
hasn't done a LinkedIn stalking here and there? And you haven't always been in, you know, the food education world. You've been around the block a little bit. So, can you walk us down that a little bit? Why
Yeah.
led you to get to, Jones Valley and all this?
Well, it really kinda starts with how I got to Birmingham, and
Okay.
so I think I'll start there. I graduated from the University of Georgia, like I said, I went on a college journey,
Okay.
for many different reasons, and I'm always a testament to my kids and to other kids to say that you don't always get in that first school that you want. It's important to pay attention to SAT scores. But if you work hard and you figure out a way to get that GPA to get you into other schools, you can do it.
There you
I
go.
started off in college at my local Columbus State University and
Okay.
didn't really know what I was gonna do. Ended up moving to Georgia State University in Atlanta and found myself in many ways surrounded by the most interesting people, got involved in some women's studies stuff and started to kind of think about what I could do, and then ended up at the University of Georgia where I did settle on magazine major. So I started really journalism was where I could tell stories and get to know people, and that's really
Yeah.
what I was drawn to from a very early age, was just to kind of talk to people, understand where they come from, and it's that human connection that I've always really been drawn to. And so magazine journalism was one of those things that I just kind of clung to. I just, grabbed and, no one told me about the internet in that moment.
Yeah.
Way back in, the 1990s. Or the internet and podcasting and blogs and
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
the things that would end up really taking magazine world by storm. None of that was kind of on the radar at that time. So I majored in magazines. I got a degree also in women's studies. I finished out all of that where I really was able to look at the South through that lens and look at race and all of these things that really meant a lot to me and how to
Yeah.
reconcile the complexities of the South and all of our participation in it and how we can be better, right? How we can change it. And so I was really drawn to that. There's not a lot of places where you can get jobs in magazines. My dad, I remember, always was like, "Oh, okay, women's studies magazines. But, um,
Yeah,
and
I get that. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So we didn't, there's not a lot of places to go for jobs, but there was a paid internship opportunity in Birmingham with Southern Progress Corporation, with Southern Living magazines. And they had Southern Living, they had Cottage Living at the time, they had Coastal Living, they had, let's see, Health Magazine. Which is a women's magazine, all kinds of stuff, Cooking Light magazine. So it
Yeah.
was really a publishing house in the South, which is unheard of, and a paid internship program. And so I applied and I got in. So I got it as an editorial kind of intern at Southern Living magazine in the homes and gardens. So this is where the gardens piece comes in.
Okay. Yeah, it starts to
Also
inch its way in.
yeah, laughable that I got it because I know nothing. And so I'm answering gardens questions and driving all the editors crazy and
That's
but
so
still,
good.
again, surrounded by these incredible people who saw the beauty in this natural world, and I just remember loving that and loving that I landed there.
Yeah.
So, all of that to say, I was there for 8 years and moving my way around in different
Wow.
magazines. I went over to Health Magazine, where I was able to check the women's studies box, and and then ended up going over to Cooking Light magazine and was actually in the marketing department because some mentors of mine were like, "We think you're more on the marketing side of things." And so I kind of tested that out. So all of that to say,
Yeah.
really interesting kind of journey and 8 years of my life spent in magazine journalism. And then one day in December of 2008, they brought us all into a room and said, "Your jobs are no longer." And
Oh,
it was because of some consolidation. So our entire department was eliminated in one
wow.
day. And it began kind of a shift and change at Southern Progress that went on for years and years and years. But we were one of the very first groups that were laid off. And so, what do you do? Do you go back to Georgia? Do you
Yeah, yeah.
figure out what to do? And so, I had been exposed to all this food stuff at Cooking Light and was working with all these incredible organizations across the country, but had never really thought about my backyard and where I would land in Birmingham.
Sure.
So, yeah, so I had a severance package and, I knew someone, I knew Edwin Marty, who was one of the founders of Jones Valley Urban Farm at the time.
Yeah.
He was a gardens editor at Southern Living, but he had gone on to run the farm full time. And I went down to the trailer, which is what we had at the time at Jones Valley, and I just said, "Hey, I got a severance package. If you'll let me just find my way for a minute." And so I did. I helped them with their PayPal accounts, and they would give me payment of vegetables every single week.
Yeah.
And I would just not know what the heck to do with most of the vegetables I got. Like, I always joke, but it was the first time I'd really ever explored a rutabaga in my life. I'd never
Yeah.
eat rutabagas. And um, so it became a journey for me to figure out what to do, and I started a food blog, and from there, I have just moved on into the world of all things Jones Valley and full circle. Yeah, it has a
Okay.
whole different there's a whole journey after that, but really leading me to, me staying in Birmingham. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, food blog, do you still do it? Do you keep up with it? Was it for
Well,
Jones Valley or was it personal?
no, so it was personal at
Oh,
first
that's
because I was kind
rocks.
of going through my own, like, it's called food revival, but I was going through my own kind of food exploration and journey of what it means to have a food revival in both the
Okay.
community and in yourself and the role that food plays in your life. And it was, it was really an introduction at Jones Valley that encouraged me. So I started to like find these recipes when I would get the box. It was like a mystery box. What am I going to
Oh,
get each week?
you were like on Chopped every time.
Yes. It was like, what do you do with these things? And so I started like this blog about, and I called it the CSA Challenge, where I would take all these different recipes and feature like all these recipes that I would try with these vegetables that I was getting. And then it just kind of morphed into more of kind of it documented my entire food journey up until now of all the roles I've played here in
Oh, that's
Birmingham.
cool.
Yeah, it's been a neat thing. I don't get to do hardly anything on it anymore, but
Sure.
it was a lifeline for me for so long. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow, that's so cool. Also, when you were talking about, you're working for this group and they put you in the kind of the garden section, you're like, I don't know what the heck I'm doing. It's very in The Help when Skeeter, you've seen the Help movie?
I haven't. Don't sorry.
That's okay. It's okay. There's a character who she gets hired. She just wants to write, and so then she gets hired as like the cleaning column lady, and she's like, I
Oh,
don't
okay.
know anything about this.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna wing it. I just
Okay.
felt like that you kind of mirrored that. But if you've never seen The Help, now I'm just talking about a random movie. So hey, that it is what it
Sorry.
is.
Sorry.
Well, okay, love to hear that, and I am definitely gonna go on the internet later and look for Food Revival, and if I can, is it still up?
Oh, yeah, it's up. It's
Okay,
just yeah,
heck yeah. And I'm gonna cook a rutabaga maybe sometime this week.
if you can find it. I don't know. That was way back when, you know?
Do y'all still grow them at Jones Valley at all?
You know, I haven't seen a rutabaga in a while, but we do a lot of turnips. We do a lot of turnips and
Okay.
root vegetables, so those are in full effect, and I do know how to cook those now that I've
Okay.
we were talking about that the other day with a couple of my colleagues that, really our awakening to food was thankfully because of our Jones Valley Teaching Farm experience, like being
Yeah.
able to be exposed to all these different varieties and vegetables of all different kinds, and what an awakening it is when you get the opportunity to kind of know how to do these different things with these different vegetables and the roles that they play. Anyway, we are like nerded out on it the other day, and very thankful for getting to see it in the way that we get to see it every day.
Oh, very cool. So now you're the executive director at Jones Valley Teaching Farm.
Yeah,
You know,
crazy.
through a windy road, you got
Yep,
there.
I got
So
there.
why don't you tell us, what is Jones Valley Teaching Farm?
Yeah, so Jones Valley Teaching Farm has evolved over 20 some odd years here in
Mm-hmm.
Birmingham. And I think a lot of folks don't, have known us in different iterations, which is
Yeah.
fine, but we started off on the downtown, actually a plot over by the Nick. It was like a community garden on the south side of Birmingham,
Okay.
and then moved to the downtown farm, which is what most people are familiar with. And we kind of lived there under the name Jones Valley Urban Farm for 15 plus years with a trailer on site and ran we did many different things and followed many different, initiatives over the years. And then we were rebranded to Jones Valley Teaching Farm. And that was before I joined, but it was really to solidify our belief that the food system in and of itself, which is what we tackle, is broken on many levels and purposefully so in many ways. So our disconnect as people to our food source, the people who grow it, the people who cook it, all of those things, we've lost a value for that, but
Yeah.
also lost the history of what it means to do those activities. And we've also lost, in many ways, a realization of what is available to some and not to others in our community. And so, how
Yeah.
do you use food as a foundation to kind of explore those really big and deep issues that we face, and especially in the South, if you're going to talk about agriculture? And how do you use food as a way to bring people together to kind of change the way that we value those things, which are so important, not just to our culture and who we are as people living here, but also to our survival. And I think sometimes we forget that knowing how to grow your own food is a survival mechanism. Like
Yeah.
it's just for fun. We have to know how to do that. And so yeah, so Jones Valley, when we became a teaching farm instead of an urban farm concept, we started to put teaching farms on school campuses to really drive that home to kids that are in elementary school, middle school, and high school, so that we're changing a generational kind of experience with food. There's been multiple generations where we continue to get further and further away from our food source. And
Sure.
just like I said to you with the rutabaga, it was a joke, but it's true. Like I am from a single parent household where my mother cooked sometimes at night, but it was, it's hard for a lot of families to keep some of those traditions going based
Yeah.
on what you have and what you're facing as like a person and a family. So,
Yeah.
and it doesn't look the same, for everyone. And to pretend that it does is doing an injustice to like what people experience on a daily basis. So for us, we thought that if we can connect young people at a very early age to these concepts, that the value for that and the connection to your food and your food ways and your history with that can ultimately shift the way that they see themselves in community and with other people around them. And so that's really what we started to do at Jones Valley Teaching Farm. And here we are today. There are 16 farms in Birmingham that we kind of operate in different ways.
Yeah.
8 outdoor teaching farms, 7 of them on school campuses in our public school system, and then 8 on the west side of town that's in hydroponics
Okay.
classrooms, so we do those. And then we built a few years ago a center for food education on our downtown farm to replace the trailer. Um, to really kind of attract folks who want to learn how to do this at all ages, but also across all different school systems across the state and even beyond, that can kind of put a flag in the ground and say that food-based education matters and that Alabama has many different groups of people that are working on that. So
Yeah.
it's kind of what we do today.
Yeah. If you're a Birmingham person listening to this, or if you have ever driven through Birmingham, you're on 280 and you're like getting on to 2059. You
Yeah,
just you look
we're
to
at the
your left.
crossroads.
Yeah.
We've got highways that combine right where we are off Caraway Boulevard. We've got the airport. We got planes that fly over. We've got a
Yeah.
full train, a railroad that backs up against us. And then we have a full city block that's growing vegetables in the middle of downtown Birmingham. It's a beautiful thing.
Hey, y'all, just wanted to jump in here in the middle of the episode and say thanks so much for supporting Southern Fried. Getting to highlight stories like Amanda's and the work that she does at Jones Valley is only possible because of listeners like y'all. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you for continuing to support. And thanks for allowing Southern Fried to grow. We're reaching more and more people every episode, and we hope to continue to do so. Because Southern Fried's goal is to highlight people like Amanda, the people in the South that are doing awesome things. Because the South is a diverse, incredible place full of incredible stories and people who are making a real impact. So thanks for tuning in, and let's get back to the show. For y'all, is there like a mindset of Jones Valley that it's almost purposeful to say, we're at these schools and we have different, smaller farms, but also right here in the middle of downtown, you don't have to go to the Black Belt to see an agricultural farm. Like, you can go to the middle of downtown Birmingham and see that. Is that purposeful for y'all?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. And I think, one of it was inspired a lot by, at least to rebuild, and the center was really inspired by the young people that had gone through our program at at the school sites, because there was this idea of like, all right, we're doing all of this in these schools that happen to have these teaching farms, but like, where's our
Mm-hmm.
place? Where's our Where's our community hub that can live, where we can be around people that all agree with this, whether it
Yeah.
be our elders or folks in the community that need a place to grow food or need to access food. I mean, we live in a city that is industrial. And so
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of places where people cannot grow food, and due to toxicity in the land. And quite frankly, there's a lot of places that don't have access to land. And that's another thing that should be, also talked about that we do. How do we utilize what we have and what we've created to be a resource for everyone, and to see that you can grow in different ways? That hydroponics, soil is very important to us. It will always be. Regenerative farm practicing, that is important to us. It is our guiding light. But we also know that that's not available to everyone. So moving into even hydroponics is showing the diversity of places and how you can grow food based on where you live, who you are. We believe that healthy food access should be available to everyone, no matter where you live in the city of Birmingham. And so how do you continue to make that possible, and to start spreading kind of the message that you can grow in the places, even if it's on your patio, because we do, container farming workshops, we do, hydroponic workshops, we do outdoor farming, all these things. Where can you grow? How do you even do a little bit just to supplement what you might be purchasing or getting from other places?
Yeah. So, it's a teaching farm, and you've talked about helping, you know, the youth to change your mindset about, how we get our food and where our food comes from. So for y'all, how do kids and students and youth play a role in Jones Valley?
Yeah. Well, I mean, they're the center to everything that we do. And that's what makes us a little different than other groups. I mean, I always say this, and it's important to say this. It's going to take every kind of organization. And there's so many different organizations doing this work in the city of Birmingham, not just us. It's
Hmm.
grassroots, it's churches, faith based initiatives at schools. It's going to take everybody. It's not one group that can kind of claim that we can fix the food system in and around us. It will take all of us. And so Jones Valley really sees our role as being that partner to an institution like a school system to kind of do it in a way that really puts young people at the heart of everything that we do. And so the way we do that is, especially on school sites, is we've created curriculum that align with school standards and state standards
Okay.
at our Department of Education to really line up what they might be learning inside of the classroom. So a great example I always use, which is one of my favorites because I hate fractions.
Okay. Yeah. Who doesn't?
Well, I asked that question the other day in a speech I was doing, and I was like, "Who likes fractions?" And half the place
Uh,
raised their hands,
Come
and I
on,
was like,
guys.
"Well, clearly it does take all of us to make this world work."
Well, and some of them, they were lying. I'm going to say that. I don't know who they were, but come on,
Who
guys.
knows? But I was like, "Okay, well, half of you like fractions." Well, I was like, "I don't," and had a really hard time with fractions in my youth.
Yeah.
So one of like a great example is like a 3rd grade lesson that we have is called fraction chili. And so a teacher is probably doing fractions in the classroom, and then we come in and we have our own instructor who has this curriculum we've created and essentially takes what was being taught the day before and is able to put some hands-on lessons around it. So kiddos will come out to the teaching farm, they will harvest maybe peppers that are going to go into the chili, and then
Okay.
they are able to chop them up. So we also teach kids how to do knife skills because you
Nice.
also have to understand all of these important pieces for a child to be resilient in their kitchens and to take care of themselves. Like
Wow.
how are we creating the skills that are necessary for young people to know how to do it safely, but also to make choices that might look different? So we teach like knife skills, so they learn like the bear claw,
You got a
where
claw.
you have
Yeah.
to, and then the tunnel where you have to, put your hand over. So there's all these, and they earn badges, as they
That's
kind of
so
go up
cool.
into the knife skill department. They're very proud of them. It's terrifying for me, but it seems to work. But anyway, so they'll chop up their vegetables and then they'll prepare it and measure it out, and we'll have an exercise on how they use fractions for their measurement cups and how they would work out a problem or whatever that needs to look like. And then they build the chili themselves as like a recipe. And
Sure.
so they're also learning how to read recipes. They're learning about measurements. There's all these other components too, which we believe are all lifelong skills. Like everyone needs to know how to cook and everyone needs to
Yeah.
know how to grow food. And like those are lifelong skills. And then everyone I hear needs to learn about fractions. So we are able to use this fraction lesson to do multiple things for a child in one lesson
Yeah.
that we think is a holistic way to learn about not only subjects but about yourself and about the world and about how to take care of yourself. So that's kind of how we do it. We do it across all grade levels, and so young people become very important to like that piece of our puzzle. And then we also at the high school level have a paid internship program where
Okay.
juniors and seniors in Birmingham get the opportunity to work with us for a paid internship year round. And so they go through a 6-week culinary course, they work with our farmers, and then they also get a really well-rounded experience with, college tours, professional development, mentorship, all these other pieces. And it's again, not necessarily thinking that all of them are going to become farmers or all of them are going to become chefs, but
Yeah.
it's really using this like concept that food is this unifying piece of our world that could potentially open up curiosities and parts of ourselves that we might not realize. And so how do we
Sure.
take that and make kids excited about it, but use it as a foundation for their long-term growth and survival too? So that's kind of how kids play a really important role in everything that we
Yeah.
do.
Well, I think it's great too to kind of say, hey guys, fractions also, you got to do them when you cook. Because at some time when you get older, your wife is going to tell you to double a recipe and you're going to have to sit there and be like, all right,
Yeah.
this is 3/4 cup. So what do I need to do?
Yeah.
So that's, I just think that that's so cool that y'all tie all that in with
Yeah.
them. And I like what you said with the high school internship part. they may not be farmers and chefs, but like they will grow their own food and they will cook their own food, So at the
Yeah.
end of the day, like understanding the base of where your food comes from, I think is so cool
Yeah,
to be involved in.
that's the ultimate goal, right? Is I always say this, and it's a challenge to all of us because it's hard in the world that we live in. And I'm not saying that we've created the answers to all of it, but I do think that in a world where we are trying to always understand food access in a way, what is available to everyone, not just a few.
Yeah.
There's this idea. I remember we went Miss King, who is someone very close to me and the organization, who's lived in Woodlawn her whole life. We went on a tour with her one day, and she was with the students, and I happened to be with them. And she was like, I remember where every single yard had a garden. I mean, that was just what people did,
Hmm.
and it allow and eggs and chickens and all these things. And there's this question that I have about like what we're creating is a lot of dependency on systems that could break at any moment. And we saw that with COVID, and we're seeing it now with inflation and all the pieces that
Yeah.
affect our global kind of food economy. When we have opportunities to do it very hyper local, but also can control the means of that production, how does that set us up for success as we continue to also have to depend on these larger systems? I'm not saying that we can feed ourselves completely if you don't even have room to grow at that level. But
Sure.
are there ways to supplement that? And could we start to look at that if maybe those students that come through our program will have the skills to be able to supplement for food in a different way than even I'm so dependent on in this moment, right? So
Yeah.
it's looking at like the bigger picture of what's going to be required of us as humans in order to all kind of live together. And then the opportunity that a lot of our interns get to do, I was just there yesterday. We run farm stands on our sites too, where
Okay.
we distribute everything we grow for free to our community. And so they're also learning this incredible important thing of also sharing it. So if you get a bumper crop, how do you share that with your neighbor so that they benefit as well? And there's just
Yeah.
this like really interesting thing that happens at a community level when you have that mindset. And it's all connected to the way that we share our food together. So which we do anyway, right? We make meals for each other when
Yeah.
we
Bring him.
need
Yeah.
to. The meal train is the first thing that comes out when you need help, or
Yeah.
that when you're celebrating something, or when you're sad about something. And so how do you take that idea and make it about sustenance forever, not just in times of crisis, but like how we are living amongst each other as neighbors? Yeah.
Well, and I was gonna ask what happens to all the produce. Y'all give all of it away? It's
We do.
completely.
Everything that we grow outdoors goes to our community. We
Wow.
have a donation-based system, which we are, are the folks who, come to our farm stands are really generous with that. And so you can donate, but we don't put any pricing on it. We started doing that in COVID. We used to sell our food,
Okay.
but around COVID, one of my colleagues suggested that we think about how we're distributing food in that moment a little differently. So we tried it, and it ended up being what was important for us to do in that moment and beyond. And so we had to learn
Yeah.
that. We had to unlearn kind of what we were doing and learn a new way to do it. And we grew in that process. And so we haven't really gone back. It's been, yeah, we have two farm stands, one on the downtown farm and one at Woodlawn, but it's really at Woodlawn High School teaching farm. But we can't possibly keep up with the demand that we're seeing now. So we don't, it's just, we grow what we can, and then we're able to give out what we have. And
Yeah.
we'll continue to do that.
You talked at one point. There's like I guess an interview you gave, and you talked about the students being the experts,
Yeah.
and you said I learned so much from their feedback, and boy are they honest. Do you have any funny quips that you can off the top of your head that you remember a student saying
Oh my
about?
gosh. Well, my favorite one was the other day, so it has nothing to do with food. But I was in a classroom the other day and I had on a badge, and the badge was for me. Like, I took it 6 years ago, 7 years ago, and they were like,
Okay.
"That you?" And I was like, "Yes, it's me." And she was like, "Are you sure?" And I said, "Yes, it's me." And she
Ugh.
said, I said, "I just have grayer hair now." And she was like, "I don't know," so, um it was, you get those and you have to
Yeah.
just roll with it every single day. But also, I think what we were very careful to do is to not put a lot of shame on food, which I think is often done.
Yeah.
which drives me crazy, and you'll hear me talk about that forever, so I'm not going to do that in this moment, but you know, getting kids to try something is what our goal is. You do not have to like it when you try it. And I
Yeah.
think this idea that we make kids say, "Don't you like it? Don't you like it?" See, I told you might not like it. I don't like certain things, and I still don't like them. And I'm a human being that has agency over what I like and what I don't. And so what we do is we ask them at the end, we say, "At least try it. If you don't like," and we ask them, "Did you like it? Did you not like it?" And you can't say yuck. The rules are you can't say bleh, you can't say yuck. You
Yeah.
have to say it's not for me. And if you're going through our line at the camp where we do scratch made meals every single day by our chef Ama, who is a dear friend and mentor of mine, but she cooks a for scratch me, from scratch meal every single day for camps.
Oof.
You go through the line, and if you don't want something, you can say no, thank you. But it's none of this like no and forceful stuff. But
Yeah.
then you can also say, I kind of liked it, or I will try it again, or I won't do it. And it allows us to see that number one, curiosity and trying things is important for young people to gain that skill, and they do it.
Sure.
And agency over what they like or don't like is okay too. And we record that. And so that gives them the opportunity to have an opinion about something. And I think so
Yeah.
many times we silence young people about their opinions because we as adults think we know everything, which by the
Sure.
way, we do
We
not.
don't.
And
Yeah.
clearly, look at the world. We clearly need some work on honesty and like all the pieces. And so their feedback is actually something that drives decisions I make more so sometimes than like what I would hear at a big adult meeting out in the community.
Yeah.
So it's important, and we gather their feedback, and
Oh,
then
that's
we
awesome.
we use that every single year as a way to strengthen our programs. Yeah.
Is there any produce that like kids really like that surprised you? Like you
Oh my
thought,
gosh. Yes. One of the first things that I went to as an employee at Jones Valley was a farm club. We do after school clubs too, not just in school lessons. We do farm clubs. And those are
okay.
the kids that like are into it. And
Yeah.
so, I mean, they run the farm, they got their badges, they're there after school,
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I
They're like,
went,
don't touch my crops. I've been working
yes,
on that. Yeah.
it's like a thing. So I went just to observe, and I was brand new at Jones Valley, and I was like, "I wanna see what farm club's like." So I sit down, and I'm, like, with everybody. The instructor at the time was like, "Okay, everybody, today we're gonna try Hakurei turnips." And Hakurei turnips are these beautiful white turnips that
Okay.
are different than the turnips I grew up with, and but I didn't know that at the time. So I'm thinking, we're about to eat a raw turnip in this
Yeah.
moment,
Yeah.
and I don't want to do that. Like, there's no part of me that wants to do this in this moment. And so they cut them into quarters, and they started passing them around. They're like, "Okay, on the count of 3, we're all gonna taste our Hackright turnip." And I'm like, "Oh my
Oh.
god." Like, so I'm looking at this thing, and so sure enough, we count to 3 and we all eat a piece of the turnip, and I'm the one sweating bullets and like, I
Yeah.
don't wanna
Yeah.
do it. But all the kids were like, "Let's do it." And it was delicious. It's like got this like appley texture. It's a
Mm.
little sweeter than what I'd ever tasted before, and it's something that I'd never had.
Yeah.
And so I went back and I had like another one, and everybody else was asking for another one. And it was one of those moments where I was like, see what we're doing here. Like, I got it.
Yeah.
But it was that moment where I was like, there's no way that I'm going to like a Hakurei raw turnip in my mouth.
Yeah. I'm not doing that.
But it worked. So, yeah. So I will say that, radishes can be tricky. Radishes can
Yeah.
be tricky, but
Yeah.
they're so beautiful to grow. And, we did a cucumber taste test not too long ago, and like I think most everyone in the room liked it.
Mm-hmm.
But there were a few that were like, I'm not into cucumbers, and one of my kids isn't into cucumbers. So some of it's about texture, all those things that make us who we are and our
Yeah.
palates who we are. So we don't assume that every kid is going to love every single piece. But I will tell you, at summer camp, kids are eating stewed cabbage. My kids are eating stewed cabbage
Yeah.
with turkey bacon in it. And I'm like, in what lifetime would my child ever eat stewed cabbage?
Choose that.
Only at
Yeah.
Jones Valley Teaching Farm.
That's great.
That's the biggest feedback we get from, they're like, I'm sorry,
You're
my
like, well,
child said that they had kale today. Can you
yeah.
verify this lie?
Well,
I'm
and
like,
then like
They
And
did.
your friends are eating the kale, and you're like, I gotta eat it.
Yeah.
And then you like it, and you're like, okay, mom was
Yeah.
right.
When a kid has the agency to, like, do it,
Yeah,
they'll like it because they
yeah,
feel like they're in charge and they're proud of it, and when they make something, they'll try it before it's just thrown in their face and saying, "You have to eat it." Them actually participating in the process actually makes them excited to try it, which is what I've learned also. So it transfers to your house too. Doesn't
yeah.
always. Like, there's still like, my children have gone through the camps, and Chef Ama is Chef Ama. There is no one like Chef Ma. Her food
Yeah.
is above and beyond most anyone on planet Earth. So, like, I know what I'm going up against. So they'll come home and I'll say, "Would you like meatballs tonight?" And they're like, "Is it Chef Ama's meatballs?" And I'm like, "No." Then no, I would
Then
not
no.
like your meatballs,
Yeah.
mom.
Yeah. One thing that kills my mom to this day is she was one of the teachers at the elementary school I went to. And
Yep.
so, she knew all of our
Yep.
cafeteria ladies. And my mom would be cooking spaghetti. And I'd be like, I'd rather have the school spaghetti. And
Yep.
that killed her to this day. She'll bring it
Y
up.
Yes, and that is true about Camp Grow, and you can ask any parent, they're gonna be like, "Dang it, Camp Grow, Chef Ama," you know?
That's so good.
But it's beautiful to see kids, like, eating things that they
Yeah.
also never had before because Chef always does on the end of like, on a Friday, she does, global cuisine so that kids can, like, experience
Oh, that's
Mediterranean
fun.
cuisine or, African cuisine, like, so many different countries that she's able to represent, and
Yeah.
things that most kids are never exposed to, including myself. Like, I'm being exposed to brand new stuff because of the experience at Jones Valley
Yeah.
as an adult. And it just opens yourself up to also, it opens your heart up to understand different cultures. You're not afraid of cultures that are different than yours. You're not afraid of people that look different than you. And so it really translates beyond just the food,
Sure.
but to how we are interfacing with one another with less fear. And if anything is needed in this moment, right now, it's that.
Yeah, like cuisine is the great uniter. Like,
Yep.
come sit at a table and let's share a meal together is, the
Yeah.
thing that brings us all together. So, what do you see as like the future of Jones Valley? Is it growing? Or is it continue to do what you're doing? Is it going to other cities and trying to help them do something? What does it look like in, 5, 10 years of Jones Valley?
Yeah. I mean, like, we just want as many kids and community members as possible to have access to this work. It's not about Jones Valley, right? It's about the community that it's created of both kids and graduating interns that are coming back
Yeah.
to see us, or students that have gone through our work and now are working at Jones Valley, or community gardeners that are now helping each other because they went to a workshop together at Jones Valley.
Mhm.
It's really about how do we continue to make that kind of stuff, that kind of magic happen at a community level and reach as many people as possible. And who knows what that means? I mean, we've grown tremendously over the last 10 years. And we have 33 people who work full time at Jones Valley. When I
Wow.
got here 10 years ago, it was 5, 6, and so, we've also become an economic engine as well. Like, we've almost become the food jobs. And I thought we would be the kind of intermediate, like, we would be moving people into food jobs, but really we've become the food jobs, which is great. But how we sustain it is always a worry. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm in charge of an organization that continues to grow, and how do we continue to sustain and grow it as a nonprofit? Is tricky at all times. It doesn't matter what year, it doesn't matter what administration. It doesn't, like, being a nonprofit it's just hard
Mhm.
to keep up with. And so, but it's important, and we exist because we're filling a gap that doesn't exist. And until those gaps are full, we will continue to be necessary, I think, for our community. So I hope it's just reaching as many more people as we possibly can. I hope that it is finding the kind of funding that allow us to do that, and even to find new ways to fund our mission so that that can be achieved, right?
Yeah.
And that's always the trick, but we've done it, and I'm super proud, and continue to have the support from our state and our city, and our school systems and all those pieces. So we feel incredibly thankful for the kind of support that we have in Birmingham.
Yeah.
Um, it's been a ride for sure.
Good. Well, Amanda, thank you so much for joining me. I've got two more quick things for you as
Yeah.
we start to wrap up. First is, if somebody wants to support Jones Valley and the work y'all are doing, what are the best ways for them to do that?
Yeah, so you can go to jvtf.org, and there are multiple ways for you to support us. There's donate buttons, but there's also volunteer activities, which are super helpful to us. There's many different ways that you can get involved. I will say and highlight that on May 30th, we're having a big fundraiser for some of our work on the farm. It's called Gather, and it's always a lot of fun. We have local chefs that will be there. It's almost like a picnic and fundraiser. You can bring a chair, you hang out, we do line dancing, we do all kinds of fun stuff. So it supports our good community food work that we do across our community. So that's May 30th, and you can purchase tickets online for that too, and it goes straight into our programming. So that would be super great. And that's where you can kind of see all the work that is happening at one time and that community that fills us up. So I highly suggest that too.
Okay, great. Well, everybody go do that. Go to jvtf.org, support Jones Valley. And Amanda, final question for you on Southern Fried. What we're doing with this podcast, this show, is trying to highlight the South and the people that are in it. And so my guests, I always end with one question for all of them, and that's, if we were to switch places and you were the host of Southern Fried, who is somebody you were like, I got to get on the show? I think they'd be great to highlight. Who would you call up?
Oh my goodness.
I know, a little curveball here at the end.
Yeah, I think you should highlight one of our interns, because
what a
they
good
would
answer.
tell you the truth and would also highlight the work that they are doing. I think young people are so important to our world right now. And so the more young people that you can get to kind of talk about their dreams and hopes and the things that they want to have happen in the city and in the state, the better off we'll all be if we listen. So that would be my answer.
I think that's really good. Amanda, thank you so much for joining me. It was great to talk to you and get to know you and Jones Valley a little bit, and just appreciate your time.
All right. Thanks so much.
Well, that concludes this episode of Southern Fried. Thank you guys for listening. Hey, if you want to go to the event that Amanda was talking about, go to jvtf.org and buy your tickets. Go support Birmingham if you're in the area, and if you're not, go to the website anyways and check out what Jones Valley is doing, because it's an incredible project and maybe something that would be beneficial to wherever you are in the South. As always, we can't thank you guys enough for supporting, for tuning in, and for listening to Southern Fried. I think we're at like 30 episodes or something, and we keep getting awesome guests and highlighting the South and talking to people who get to show off how incredible the South is, how incredible the region is, filled with awesome people. So thank you guys for listening, and y'all, come on back.